Back to Jerkblock Talk. I'm Jason Fernandez. I'm here at CrossFit Rife with MC Hall. And today we're going to discuss some psych stuff. And I wanted to have MC on this episode, and we're going to do a couple different episodes on this because this is a huge rabbit hole. But before we get into some of the psych pieces, we're going to give you basically a scenario. We're going to talk about some ways to work through that scenario with a given athlete. But real quick, give a little bit of your background, education, and stuff like that real quick.
I've got my undergraduate in physiology and psychology, did my master's at Old Dominion in sports psychology or performance psych, whichever you want to call it, Masters of Science. I've been coaching here, obviously, so I've been able to kind of use a few of these techniques here and there, but recently just took the first part of my board, so finishing that up shortly, so...
Cool. Yeah, so she's got some background, so we're not just spitballing here. We've kind of laid out a template for, we've kind of combined a couple different scenarios that we've personally had in the gym to make some, if you want to think about it from like a buyer's persona, these are our athlete personas based on different athletes that you might have in the gym. So I'm going to let MC kind of paint this picture, and then we're going to talk about some of the problems you're going to have with the athlete, and then more really, how do I attack this so that I can get to the solution for said athlete. So let's talk about our first athlete. Who was our first athlete?
We have Carol as our first athlete. So
the names have been changed to protect
yes.
the innocent, so they're not real people.
No. So we did a little profile on Carol. Her description: she's come in. Carol's 57, so she's a master's athlete. She's got a back injury, so prior injury to coming into CrossFit. So Carol's got some trust issues.
How did she get the injury?
She was in a car accident.
Yeah, so this is an acute injury. This is not like a nagging, like, over the years my back just got stiff. Like this is a traumatic thing that happened, and we are battling back from this injury. Right,
so she's got a fear. So she's got this back injury. She comes to us and she tells us her history. So, we start Carol out fundamentals. She's good to go. It's time to go to the first CrossFit class. So now we're kind of having to treat Carol. She's our baby bird athlete, right? So we're really coddling Carol. We really want to make sure Carol has a great experience, not to give CrossFit a bad name, right?
So,
we don't want that.
So for reference, this is a running joke in our staff, but is actually a real thing, something that we abide by, which is the baby bird rule, which is anybody that comes in the gym, doesn't matter who they are, we treat them like little baby birds, and your only job is to basically not drop them. So it doesn't matter what the athlete is, doesn't matter what their background is. Baby bird, we coddle them, we make sure, and we determine when they actually get pushed out of the nest. That is up to us. We determine when that happens. That's not for the athlete to determine. And it's even more important when we're dealing with scenarios like this, when somebody, we have like an actual psych profile that we have to actually work around with an athlete in order to get them where they want to go.
Right. So Carol didn't have any exercise experience. Carol came in as a beginner, but also with an injury that's made her fearful of exercise. So that's pretty much our profile we built for Carol. So
let's talk about real quick. So what you need to understand prior to any of this happening, and all of this is predicated on something pretty fundamental, I think, which is like you have to, for any of this to work, for the rest of the however long we're going to discuss this in all these episodes, for any of this stuff to work, you have to be interested in the people that walk in the door. It can't just like have a profile and then hopefully that the template works. Like you have to be involved in these people's lives. You have to understand who they are, what they want, their fears, their goals, all of those things in order for any of this to work. So you have to give a fuck about the people that you're working with.
Yeah, so, you can't just pick this out of a hat.
Yeah, and what you have to understand about Carol in this scenario, and if you've had a gym for any significant period of time, like this is a real thing, in this scenario, Carol, who has come into the gym, is made a huge decision for her to just walk in the door and kind of subject herself to CrossFit, this big scary beast that is CrossFit. So before we've even done anything, she already has a fear of being injured, but she's made this decision. She wants to better her life. And now she's coming in here and it's just fear
putting her trust in our hands.
Yeah, so now she's handing us this trust and she's scared of that. So outside, completely independent of the injury, this is a huge leap. This is something way outside of her comfort zone that she's doing, which is most new people. So that applies to a lot of people that walk in the gym, not just Carol or this athlete profile.
Right, and I would say that leads us into our next thing, which would be the hurdles that we face with Carol, which would be not only is she scared of this injury that she's prior to coming in our gym, but like Jason said, now she's in our hands. She's trusting us with her ability, and it's up to us whether or not we're going to facilitate this for her in the way that we should.
Okay. So what's the big thing we have to be worried
about? Fear, 100%. Her fear of maybe the re-injury, just being in pain, and anytime someone's in pain, I mean, that's just their body telling them that this is wrong, and that of course is going to instill that fear. So we want to keep her, number one, pain-free always, movement pain-free, but we want to tackle that fear while we're doing this. We're making these baby steps, right? We don't want to ever take a step, just like you said, just let her leave the nest and go. We've really got to make sure that we take care of her. So fear.
All right. So we have kind of 3 things that we want to do. So we've established that this person comes in, they have an injury, and this doesn't have to be Carol. This could be literally, this could be me. So we'll give my example. I probably like 3 years ago. Yeah, right about 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, ruptured Achilles. So had to come back from a full ruptured Achilles, and super scared coming back from that. You have to learn to walk. It really sucks.
Right.
So even myself, who played collegiate athletics, substantial athletic background, even at that point, substantial CrossFit experience. I think it was 5 or 6 years deep at that point.
Yeah.
Super fearful about getting back and just doing basic stuff like jogging, running, jumping. It was like,
so learning how to trust your body.
Yeah,
essentially.
super scary. Right. So this is not just for this piece, but there's 3 kind of pieces that we want to attack here, and I'll let you talk kind of through these pieces.
Right. So
about how we want to start by doing that.
So we probably want to start first just communicating with Carol, right? So asking Carol, that background, like how did you get injured? So we found out all the history. We know why Carol's here. We know that she's putting our trust in our hands. So now we want to communicate with her, and make her trust us, right? So we don't ever we always have to be right too. So we always talk about, me and you, like if you're coaching and you scale somebody, you have to be right always, or they're not going to trust you, right? So same thing with Carol. We just have to communicate with her, figure out what her fear is, why she's scared of it, tackle that first, then have all these conversations with her over time. So she's constantly instilling her trust into us over a period of time. Just doesn't happen in that one sitting with her. We sit down with her one-on-one and we check back in continuously. So more like a psych meeting one-on-one with Carol.
And there's 2 things that I think you're kind of doing when you start this one-on-one. So one-on-one is just that alone time where you get the athlete, and here's what I would, so you can ask the athlete, like, why do you hurt my back, right? So here's what I would challenge you. If you're not familiar with the 5 whys, you should really do that. So the general rule of thumb is you need to ask why 5 times before you actually get to the problem, where you get to the answer that is actually creating this scenario. So if you only ask 1 time, we're like, what are you scared of? Well, I'm scared because my back hurts. That's not as sufficient enough. Well, why are you scared of your back hurts? And they say, well, I'm really afraid that I'm going to get injured. Well, why are you afraid of getting injured? And now we get into these deeper, well, I'm afraid I'm going to get injured because I have grandkids and I really want to play with them. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now we're getting into some serious stuff that we can have. And what this does is this lays the groundwork and solidifies why they're there talking to you at that moment in time. It's not because their fucking back hurts. It's because there's something else that they really want. But you're going to have to dig, right? And it's going to be a little uncomfortable for them and for you, but everything will move much more smoothly if you dig a little bit deeper and you go through those 5 whys. And then after that, the communication piece is that you want them to have buy-in, right? So you want them to know the plan, right? So you do want them to trust you, but you really want to say, all right, Carol, this is how we're going to do, this is the timeline generally we're looking at, so having that conversation. So
absolutely, for sure. And then I would, once me and Carol have this relationship, she's been there for, 3 months. We've been working around this injury, but working through it. We're not trying to jump it. We're not trying to skip it. Obviously, if there's pain, we'll skip it, pain-free movement. But we're working through the injury and through the mental barriers of the injury as well. So then, after a few months of me working with Carol, I'd suggest Carol to try some visualization techniques prior to this injury. So before
so dive into that, because we were talking about that before. I want you to give a little bit more specific about like what kind of visualization and all that stuff like that.
Right. So I would say prior to your injury, and you remember how it felt to be pain-free and to do things a certain way, I want you to visualize those moments. I want you to try as hard as you can to push away those moments of the pain visualization moments, or the moment when you were in the accident or when you felt the pain for the first time. Try to forget those and only visualize pain-free and things that happened before the injury occurred. So whether or not she was in a car accident, or whether athlete A hurt their back deadlifting, or if, we talked about RG3 a few times, before his injury.
And what we were talking about when she mentioned RG3 is that like some athletes is not the physical capacity is not what's going to hold them back from the recovery.
It's the mental capacity.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So whether or not the injury was detrimental to the sport that they play, or for CrossFit, for example, for performing the exercises as prescribed or in any fashion, it's more of that getting over the fear of doing those things. So for people that are using those visualization techniques, I would just suggest, push those visualization techniques to before your injury occurred, because thinking about all the negative things surrounding your injury is only going to push you farther away from your goal and the task at hand. So, if you can see it all over their faces too. So we have a girl, she's hurt her back previously, and anytime she goes to deadlift over a certain load, it's like the facial expressions change. She's broken down to like cold sweats. Her face is pale. And I'm like, are you in pain? And those are like indicators of like, I'm feeling some pain right now. She's like, no, I hurt my back a while ago, or, and I was trying to deadlift, and now, I think I'm scared. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so fear can manifest pain.
Absolutely.
Like, not even pain is not even real. So like the mind can manifest pain where it actually doesn't exist. So what we have to do is we have to get those athletes to pull away from that. And I learned this, and this is something you can use in this scenario, which is, okay, so now how do we remove the ability or the time for the athlete to think, right? So there's some different things I can do there. So let's say I'm working one-on-one with this athlete, and we're just working on the deadlift. We can, number one, make sure that the load we're using is always acceptable, and then we could put them on a clock, right? It depends on what the clock is, it depends on what the movement is, but we just put them on a clock so that now the athlete's attention is diverted to the clock in the next rep and the next movement, and not actually my pain or whatever it is I'm going on. So there's some tricks and things that you can do there that will actually, okay, I'm not worried about my back. I'm worried about in 10 seconds I have to get this done, boom, and get set up. So you could do like clean snatches or something like that on a 30-second window. And this is not just for injury. This is for athletes who are just very analytical and who overthink lifts. Like, remove their ability to do that, and then you'll get a better product. And this happens a lot of times in seminars where if we're going to do an active classroom with an athlete who we're working on, we'll say the push jerk for a reason, they're not getting full hip extension. What I'll do is I'll speed up the cadence of how I teach the movement with that athlete so that they don't even have time
to overthink it.
Overthink it. It's just like, listen to what I'm saying, do it when I tell you to do it, and then we'll be fine. Just take the correction, remove that from them. It's just go, reset, go. And again, this is all assuming you've made the right decision. It's either PVC pipe, technique work, but just what you can do is you can just turn the speed up a little bit so that we don't have time to think. We don't have time to talk ourselves out of it. We don't have time to think about all the bad things. All I have time is get my shit together, go to the next rep, make sure my setup is good, and move when I hear that command. So that's one of the things you can do in that scenario. But yeah, and I think this is particularly important with some of our older demographic that you should start. I think you'll start seeing a little bit more and more of it as CrossFit grows and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And these older athletes are trying to take back some of their physical capacity that they've lost. Decrepitude started to stick in. And this is some of the stuff you're gonna have to overcome. So you're gonna have to have a little bit more of a conversation with the Carols of the world than I am Johnny, who's 25.
We'll talk about Johnny.
Yeah, we have another episode on Johnny.
We know about Johnny.
So you're gonna have to have a little bit more in-depth conversation with Carol about a little bit more baby bird like than I am with Johnny, because Johnny thinks he's invincible.
Right.
Carol's like, I'm gonna break right now. Like, so
Carol's very fearful.
yeah. So recap. So you have this athlete. So Carol was kind of an older athlete who had an acute injury. She was a car wreck. And that biggest thing that we have to do, and all of this is on the assumption she's been cleared by her doctor to come in and do exercise and things of that nature. She has that fear. So 3 things you should take away from that. That fear can be combated with 3 pieces. 1, you have to communicate with the athlete. Get those 5 whys. Do it in a one-on-one setting so that you can start creating some of that trust, and it goes.
And do it. Don't just do it one time, like we were talking about earlier. Always have those check-ins with Carol, with anybody, but really with Carol in particular.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to like, I know Carol has an issue. I need to be checking in with Carol all the time. So communication is key. Make sure you get some one-on-one time with them, and then visualization is the last piece. And these are things that they can do off, outside of the gym. Or off of the floor, which is important. You're there on the floor with them, so you can handle all those other situations. We're talking about things that are happening outside the walls of the gym.
Absolutely.
Those one-on-one, these are the mental pieces that need to happen. You need to communicate with them. You need to tell them what the plan is. You need to have the one-on-one time so that they can start to build that trust with you, and then you need to work on visualization so that they can visualize success, not failure or injury or something like
before
that.
they even walk into the door the next day.
Yeah.
Right, so you're setting them up for success outside of the gym, like you said. Cool. So it's great.
Awesome. I think we're gonna do 2 more episodes.
Yep, we have 2 more athlete profiles that we've built. So,
and these will bleed over a little bit. There's some carry between athlete profiles, but this is something I wanted to talk about because these are the actual things you're gonna be dealing with. Like I joke a lot, is like as a coach, you're like a trainer and a psychologist and all these other things, like all at the same time. And this is the kind of stuff you need to be able to manage. But like everything else we talk about, there needs to be kind of a plan, and you need to have like some preset kind of protocols in your mind, at least, for when that athlete walks in the door, because it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
They're going to walk in the door, and they're going to want to have that conversation with you about like, I'm here, but I'm scared, and I don't even know if I should be talking to you right now. So
exactly. Yep.
Cool.
All right.
Cool. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the comments. What's your Instagram?
MC Hall 53K.
Boom, hit her up on Instagram. If you have questions for her about some psych stuff, hit her up. She's got an educational background in that. Practice it every day here in the gym. If you like the content, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we will see you later for episodes 2 and 3. All right, see ya.
See ya.